saw him go under, but you didn't see him come back up. I didn't see him go under. I saw his head under the water. I presumed he was going to go under. And I saw where I thought he was going to come up. I didn't see him anywhere else in the lake. I looked for him at other places, assuming that that's what he would do. And there have been occasions in the past before the accident when you saw John intoxicated, but where he didn't slur his speech. You're asking me if I knew he was intoxicated, and if at that time he wasn't slurring his speech. I'm asking you if you had seen him intoxicated, but where he wasn't slurring his speech. I've seen him where he's consumed alcohol and he wasn't slurring his speech. Back to September 28, 89 deposition. That's 2/8/89, 5 months after accident. Here's the question right here. Did he have problems with slurred speech when he was intoxicated? Answer no. Is that right, ma'am? Yes. In terms of the present day, ma'am, Joe is able to feed himself if the food's properly prepared. In other words, he can utilize the utensils. He can't utilize a knife, and it can't be like a salad fork. That's that. I wouldn't actually, about 10 yards, maybe, at the most. And then, did you observe these people as they traveled that 10 yards? I watched them, yes. And then you were standing about 50 or 60 yards away at that time where this man was fishing, in rough estimate, yes. And as soon as you saw that, did you hear some noise at that time? And that's when I heard some people starting to scream, yes. And you started running? At the time that they had actually gotten to the campfire is when I started running. When you started running, was there anything wrong with your legs at that time so that you couldn't run rapidly? No, not like today, unfortunately. And did you run up there and then jump over the fire right along one movement? You mean without stopping or anything? Yes, without stopping. Yes, you did. And about the time that you got to the other side of the fire and this person swung at you, by that time everybody was running to the north and the incident was already over. Is that right? Well, in other words, people were scattering. Would you say then that this was a momentary attack that seemed to be just a run from the top of this rock pile down, and some blows were struck and then they ran right off? Calls for a conclusion, Your Honor. Objection. It is a compound question, sustained on that ground. I think you indicated that you could see these figures up on top of the rock pile because of the lights behind them. Yes. A long way behind them, though, yes. But the area was basically dark, was it not? Well, again, a normal night, yes. And did you have time to take a swing at anybody that night? No, sir. They disappeared. They were gone by the time that you had a chance to do that. I didn't actually want to go on chasing them, trying to pick one, either. I don't mean that. I mean at the campfire. No, by the time I ducked out of the way, they were going the other way. Everybody else was gone too. That is when I got up and was more or less looking around to see what I could help with. Mr. Thornock, after this incident took place, you made a record to the police department, didn't you? As to what took place? In brief, yes. And did you go to the Imperial Beach Police Department in that particular night following the incident? Yes, sir. On that occasion, did you see Daniel Harrow in a jail cell there? Yes. And following that, did you see him taken out in handcuffs to a police car? I caught part of it, yes. Nothing further, thank you. Mr. Patrick, when you saw Mr. Harrow at the Imperial Beach Jail, where was that? What do you mean? Where was I standing? Yes. More or less by the sergeant's desk. Your Honor, may we approach the bench? Yes, Your Honor. With reference, I realize, of course, that I opened the door by asking the question regarding the fact that this person saw Daniel Harrow at the jail and also being taken out in handcuffs. And I realize that Mr. Patrick has the right to examine on that particular point at this point. However, there was some activity, I believe, that took place between this witness and I don't recall frankly if he identified Harrow or not, who did the spitting. Was there spitting and a comment about white trash? Can you phrase your questions in such a fashion so as to coach your witness to avoid that? I think it would fall within the area where perhaps, though relevant, its prejudicial nature would justify its omission under my discretionary role. I would submit it as admission, as a consciousness of guilt. Oh, in any event, I think in my discretion, I would consider its relevancy outweighed by its prejudicial nature. If Mr. Patrick intends to cross-examine on this point, perhaps it would be advisable to take the 3 o'clock break. That's what I was going to say. I would caution him not to mention that. I thought what he was going to say was his seeing the witness there was a spontaneous thing and not pursuant to directions by the police. That is the case, is it not? Now that's what I assumed. Limit the testimony so as to avoid the spitting incident. I think he has a perfect right to bring out the fact that the identification there was spontaneous and not at police suggestion. And because that is a factor that the jury should know, just as the appellate courts are interested in it in connection with pre-trial taint. I would agree, Your Honor, and I would stipulate to the fact that based upon the prior testimony that we have heard from this witness, that it was no police action in the sense of affirmative action taken to have him view the witness. Yes, I would prefer that it not be done by stipulation. It should be done by evidence. The jury would think otherwise, that there was some hanky-panky going on. Let's take the recess and you talk to the witness.